In this lesson, we'll be learning about subphylum Crustacea. So first, let's talk about the classification of subphylum Crustacea. So we are still in phylum Arthropoda. Last time we learned about subphylum Chelicerata. So I just want to put this into perspective. Chelicerates are a subphylum within Arthropoda, as are crustaceans, subphylum Crustacea, which is what we'll be learning about in this lesson. And within subphylum Crustacea, there is some classification that you need to know. First, class Mallocostraca, and I'm not really concerned about you knowing that class specifically, but I just put it in there because of the classification goes phylum, class, and then order. But I do want you to know order Isopoda, and here came in our little pill bug. And then we have order Decapoda, which are probably the things that you're really familiar with as crustaceans. So those are the two orders we're going to be learning about today. First of all, though, let's talk about what a crustacean is, and this is the definition. Crustaceans are primarily aquatic and have 2 pairs of antennae, 2 or 3 body sections, and chewing mouth parts called mandibles. So that's our definition, and we're going to be looking at those characteristics as we go through the lesson today. So first of all, we have order Isopoda. Iso means same, poda means feet, and isopods are terrestrial crustaceans. So these are land-dwelling crustaceans. And the common name that most people use in the United States is pill bugs. Here in Utah, we tend to use the word potato bug, or I've even heard roly-poly. They're all talking about the same thing, these little guys right here, but they are crustaceans. And it is important to note that they do breathe with gills. They are crustaceans, and crustaceans breathe with gills, so they live in damp places. They have to live in damp places in order to breathe. So you'll find pill bugs often in wet soils, under rocks, where it is fairly damp. And sometimes in order to keep their gills moist, they roll into balls. They also may roll into balls as a defense mechanism when they're being threatened, but sometimes they do it to keep the moisture in their gills so they can breathe. Here's a drawing of the anatomy of an isopod. First of all, they have 3 body segments, and that's part of the definition of a crustacean, 2 or 3 body segments. So you don't need to know the names of these, but I just wanted to show you that they do have 3 body segments. They have antennae, and here is the underside of a pill bug. They have 7 pairs of walking legs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And down here you can see kind of their gills. This is how they breathe down here with their gills. So that's a pill bug, order Isopoda. Now on to order Decapoda. Deca means 10, poda means feet, so decapods have 10 feet. They have 5 pairs or 10 feet of walking legs. And the first is usually modified to form pinchers. They're also called chelae or chelipeds. Now, this is important to note that in decapods, one of the walking legs has been modified into pinchers. When we talked about chelicerates last time, and particularly scorpions, one of their pedipalps was modified into pinchers. It wasn't one of their walking legs. So that's a difference here between subphylum Chelicerata and subphylum Crustacea. In subphylum Chelicerata, if they have pinchers, it was one of the pedipalps that was modified. But here in order Decapoda, one of the walking legs has been modified to form pinchers. So common examples of decapods are lobsters. Okay, and you can kind of see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, with the 5th, the front, being modified into a big pincher. This is a crayfish. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pairs of walking legs, with the first being modified into a pincher. This is a shrimp. Shrimp are also decapods. And then crabs. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pairs of walking legs, with the 5th being modified into a pincher. So those are the most common examples of decapods. Now let's talk a little bit about the anatomy. First, they have antennae and antennules. They're the 2 pairs of antennae that crustaceans have. They also have walking legs, and there's that fifth modified into a claw. And then they have two body segments. They have an abdomen and a carapace with a head attached. So again, a crustacean has 2 or 3 body segments. In order Isopoda, they have 3, and in order Decapoda, they generally just have 2. And here, if you look at the internal anatomy, just really briefly, we'll talk about this in just a second, but do know that they have a complete digestive system with a mouth, stomach, intestines, and an anus. Their heart is located up toward the dorsal wall, and they have a brain as well. So now let's talk about the 7 survival characteristics of decapods. The first is feeding, and the feeding among decapods is very varied. There are carnivores, there are detritivores, there are herbivores. So lots of different feeding mechanisms within crustaceans, but all of them do have a complete digestive tract with a mouth, stomach, intestines, and anus. For respiration, all decapods breathe with gills, and the gills are attached to their legs. And so they often keep their legs moving in order to breathe, in order to keep the water moving over their gills. Pardon my movement there. Here are the gills, and this is in a crayfish, and here are the legs. So the gills are attached to the legs, and as they move their legs, it helps wash the water over the gills to get the oxygen into the gills to deliver to the rest of the body. Circulation, all arthropods, and crustaceans are included in this, and decapods within that, have an open circulatory system. So they have a heart with a few blood vessels, and then the blood leaves the vessels and washes over the tissues and then collects back in sinuses and gets pumped back to the heart. Decapods excrete by diffusion, and this is because they are aquatic, so they use the water around them to get rid of their wastes. Just remember that terrestrial arthropods use Malpighian tubules. So because decapods are aquatic, they don't have Malpighian tubules, they use diffusion. For response, they have a well-developed nervous system. They have brain, sensory antennae, eyes. All of those help them detect and monitor the world around them. They do move, like all other arthropods, by pulling muscles on their exoskeletons. And then reproduction, they have internal fertilization. That means that the male delivers the sperm into the female, and we call that copulation when the male directly deposits the sperm into the female. But then the female lays the eggs, and they have external development. And oftentimes in decapods, the female carries the eggs on her underside, and this is a crayfish. These are eggs she has laid, and she's carrying them on the bottom side of her abdomen, protecting them until they hatch. So that is subphylum Crustacea. We have order Isopoda and Decapoda within that. And now you're ready to look at the additional resources and take your quiz.